Amelia's trembling hands sent coffee cascading over the billionaire's laptop, destroying in seconds what had taken him months to create. Instead of fury, his piercing blue eyes locked with hers as he uttered the words that would change her life forever. "I need your help. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go." The chandelier's crystal teardrops caught the light in maison d'or, casting prismatic patterns across white tablecloths that cost more than Amelia Bennett made in a week. She navigated the dining floor with practiced precision, balancing a silver tray of espressos destined for table 16. 6 months at the city's most exclusive restaurant had taught her to move like a ghost between tables of power brokers, celebrities, and old money, invisible until needed, forgotten immediately after. Today marked exactly 1 year since her mother's diagnosis. The weight of unpaid medical bills pressed down on her shoulders, heavier than any tray she'd ever carried. Her second job at the 24-hour pharmacy started in 3 hours. Sleep had become a luxury she couldn't afford, like the meals served in this dining room. "Table 12 needs attention," Marcus, the floor manager, murmured as they passed. His eyes flicked meaningfully toward the corner where the restaurant's premium table sat slightly elevated above the rest, a throne for whoever could afford its astronomical minimum. Amelia nodded, delivering the espressos first with mechanical efficiency. The patrons barely acknowledged her existence. She turned toward table 12 and her heart sank. Sitting alone was Connor Reed, the tech mogul whose face had graced the cover of Business Insider last month. 30 under 30 and already worth billions after his data security company's IPO shattered expectations. The media called him the Wolf of Silicon Valley, brilliant, ruthless, and famous for dismantling competitors with surgical precision. He sat working intently on a sleek titanium laptop that looked thinner than a pencil. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than her entire college education, the one she'd had to abandon when her mother got sick. His dark hair was precisely cut, his jawline sharp enough to slice paper, and his focus so intense that the bustling restaurant might as well have been empty. "Good afternoon, sir. May I get you something to drink?" Amelia asked, her voice calibrated to the perfect pitch of deference without obsequiousness. Reed didn't look up from his screen. "Black coffee. No sugar. No please, no thank you." Not even eye contact, just like most of the titans who frequented Maison d'Or, treating service staff like automated systems rather than humans. Amelia nodded and retreated, returning minutes later with a hand-polished silver carafe of the restaurant's exclusive Kona blend. She poured with the precision Marcus had drilled into all staff from the correct height, at the correct angle, in a smooth, controlled stream. The dark liquid swirled into the bone china cup, steam rising in delicate curls. That's when Thomas Reeves entered. The restaurant's atmosphere shifted instantly as heads turned toward the door. Reeves was Reed's former business partner and current nemesis. Their public falling out had fueled industry gossip for months. Rumors of stolen code, betrayed confidences, and lawsuits worth hundreds of millions circulated among tech insiders. Reeves spotted Reed, and a predatory smile spread across his face. He strode directly toward table 12, ignoring the Mater D who hurried after him. "Connor," he announced loudly, causing conversations throughout the restaurant to falter. What a pleasant surprise. Reed's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. The sudden movement jarred Amelia's arm as she poured. Coffee splashed over the cup's edge, creating a dark pool that raced toward the open laptop. Time slowed. Amelia lunged to redirect the flow, but it was too late. Coffee cascaded over the keyboard in a caffeinated waterfall. The screen flickered once, twice, then went black. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the kitchen noises seemed to halt. Amelia stood frozen, the carafe still tilted in her hand, horror washing over her in waves of ice and fire. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, the words entirely inadequate. "I'm so incredibly sorry." Reed stared at his ruined device, his face unreadable. Marcus materialized at her side, already launching into damage control. "Mr. Reed, please accept our deepest apologies. We'll cover all replacement costs, of course, and your meal today will be complimentary." Reeves laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Bad day, Connor. Looks like your luck is finally running out." Reed ignored him completely, his focus shifting to Amelia. His eyes, a startling, intense blue, locked with hers. Not with anger, but with an unsettling intensity that made her skin prickle. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Amelia Bennett, sir," she answered, her voice barely audible. Marcus stepped between them. "Mr. Reed, I assure you she will be dealt with. We'll handle this immediately." Reed raised his hand, silencing the manager without looking at him. "That wasn't my question." His eyes remained fixed on Amelia. "Tell me, Miss Bennett, do you have family?" The question was so unexpected that Amelia blinked in confusion. Yes, my mother." "And what does your mother do?" The restaurant had gone completely silent, every ear strained to hear this bizarre exchange. Marcus looked panicked, clearly anticipating a public humiliation that would damage the restaurant's reputation. She's ill, sir. Cancer. I take care of her." The words tumbled out before Amelia could stop them. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Reed nodded slowly as if she'd confirmed something. He reached inside his jacket and pulled out his phone. "This laptop contains the only copy of code I've been working on for 6 months. Irreplaceable work." Amelia's stomach dropped. Her job wouldn't just be lost. She could be facing a lawsuit that would destroy what little remained of her family's financial stability. "I understand if you need to fire me," she whispered to Marcus, resignation washing over her. "But please, I need my final paycheck. My mother's treatment, your mother's treatment is expensive, I imagine. Reed interrupted, his fingers moving across his phone screen. Stage 3 ovarian cancer requires aggressive intervention. Amelia froze. How did you, Elizabeth Bennett? Admitted to Memorial West 8 months ago under Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Insurance covered the first 3 rounds of treatment before hitting your lifetime cap. You've been paying out of pocket since then, roughly $80,000 in debt already. He looked up from his phone. Your mother's next treatment is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m., but your payment is overdue. The restaurant had become a vacuum. No one moved, no one breathed. Amelia felt her world collapsing around her. How could he possibly know these intimate details of her life? Reed stood, carefully closing his ruined laptop. Miss Bennett, do you know what I do for a living? You're in tech. Security systems, she meant. Data, he corrected. I find patterns and information that others miss. It's a gift. And right now, standing before me is a woman working 2 jobs, carrying crushing medical debt, who hasn't slept more than 4 hours a night in months, yet still manages to be one of the highest-rated servers in this establishment, according to patron feedback. He turned to Reeves, whose smug smile had faltered. Thomas, perfect timing. You're about to witness something important. Reed turned back to Amelia. The work on that laptop was indeed valuable, but I need something more valuable now. Your help. The silence in Maison d'Or stretched like an overwound violin string. Diners who had been pretending not to watch now abandoned all pretense, forks suspended midway to mouths. Connor Reed's words hung in the air between them. I need your help. Amelia swallowed hard. My help? I don't understand. Marcus shifted nervously beside her. Miss Jur, Reed, perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere private. No, Reed said, his voice calm but brooking no argument. This is exactly where it needs to happen. He gestured to the chair opposite his. Please sit, Miss Bennett. Amelia glanced at Marcus, who looked as though he might faint. A server sitting with a patron, especially one of Reed's caliber, violated every rule of fine dining etiquette. But Reed's expression made it clear this wasn't a request. Slowly, feeling as though she were moving underwater, Amelia sat. Carafe still trembled slightly in her grip. Put that down, Reed said gently. You look like you're about to drop it. She placed the silver carafe on the table, all too aware of every eye in the restaurant boring into her back. Her uniform suddenly felt too tight, the collar choking. Thomas Reeves stood awkwardly to the side, his moment of triumph evaporated. Connor, I didn't come here to witness whatever ... performance this is. Reed's gaze remained on Amelia. Then leave. Reeves flushed dark red. We have unfinished business, which will remain unfinished today. Reed cut him off, finally glancing up. My lawyers will be in touch. Reeves hesitated, clearly calculating whether making a scene would benefit him. Evidently deciding it wouldn't, he turned on his heel and stalked out, leaving a wake of whispers behind him. Reed turned his ruined laptop to the side and placed his phone on the table between them. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Ms. Bennett? Amelia braced herself. Someone who just destroyed months of your work? A small smile touched his lips. I see someone who graduated top of her class from Westlake Community College with an associate degree in nursing, who was accepted to the RN program at State University but never enrolled, who maintained a 3.9 GPA while working 30 hours a week, who has perfect attendance at both jobs despite sleeping roughly 20 hours total per week for the past 4 months. Amelia's mouth went dry. How could you possibly know all that? Reed tapped his phone. What I do, finding patterns in data, it starts with curiosity. When your hand touched mine as you served my coffee, I noticed calluses inconsistent with restaurant work. Medical grade nitrile exposure causes a distinctive pattern of skin changes. You're wearing them at your pharmacy job. Your posture and movement suggested healthcare training. The rest was simple digital confirmation. That's ... Invasive, she whispered. Perhaps, he conceded, but necessary for what I'm about to propose. Around them, the restaurant had begun to return to its normal hum, though many diners still cast furtive glances their way. Marcus hovered several feet away, clearly torn between protocol and fear of offending a billionaire. 6 months ago, Reed continued, I began a project outside my company's normal operations. It's required absolute secrecy, which is why the only copy existed on that laptop. He gestured to the coffee-soaked device. No cloud backup, no external drives. I've destroyed it completely, haven't I? Guilt washed over her again. Not destroyed. Complicated. He leaned forward. Miss Bennett, what do you know about predictive healthcare algorithms? The question was so unexpected that Amelia blinked. Only what I learned in school. They're used for anticipating patient deterioration, medication interactions, identifying high-risk patients... single quotes exactly. Now imagine an algorithm that could predict cancer recurrence with 94% accuracy, using only standard blood work markers that any clinic can collect. Understanding dawned slowly. That would be revolutionary. It would save hundreds of thousands of lives, Reed correct. Particularly for people without access to expensive specialized testing. People like your mother. Amelia's heart stuttered. The code on your laptop is the culmination of 2 years of work. The final algorithm was completed last night and I just destroyed it. Her voice was hollow. No, Reed said firmly. You didn't. I have an eidetic memory, Miss Bennett. I can recreate the code, but it will take time. Time during which Thomas Reeves, who just left here thinking I've suffered a devastating setback, will rush his inferior version to market. His version? Reed's expression hardened. The reason for our falling out. He stole early iterations of my work and has been desperately trying to replicate it. If he succeeds before I can bring the correct algorithm to market, countless patients will receive false negatives. The consequences would be lethal. Amelia tried to process what he was saying, but what could I possibly do to help? I'm not a programmer. I don't know anything about algorithms. No, but you know cancer, you've lived with its reality. You understand the human element that Reeves will never grasp. Reed's eyes became intense. Need someone who can help me rebuild this code while simultaneously protecting it from corporate espionage. Someone whose presence in my life can be explained without raising suspicion. A chill ran down Amelia's spine. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. A job, Ems, Bennett. For the next 6 weeks, you'll be my personal assistant. The position comes with a salary of $20,000 per week, comprehensive health insurance that extends to immediate family members, and a binding confidentiality agreement. He paused. Your mother's medical bills will be paid in full, including any future treatments she may require. The room seemed to tilt. The amount he'd casually mentioned was more money than she'd make in years at her current job. This doesn't make sense. You could hire anyone. Professional programmers, healthcare specialists, all of whom would immediately trigger Reeves' suspicion, Reed countered. But you? A waitress I met by chance when she spilled coffee on my laptop? No one would look twice at such a transparent publicity stunt. The billionaire showing unexpected mercy to the clumsy server who ruined his property. The perfect cover for the work we need to do. Amelia's mind raced. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. What's the catch? The catch, Ms. Bennett, is that you'll need to live at my residence for the duration of the project. Complete immersion, no contact with anyone outside without my express permission. Your mother will be moved to a private suite at Westlake Medical Center under my foundation's care program. But you won't be able to visit her until our work is complete. You're asking me to disappear from my life for 6 weeks? I'm asking you to help save lives while securing your mother's future, he corrected. And yes, it requires sacrifice. Amelia felt lightheaded. Why me? The real reason. Reed's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because when I asked about your family, your first thought wasn't for yourself, it was for your mother. That kind of loyalty is rare, Miss Bennett. Can't be bought or programmed. And right now, it's exactly what I need. He extended his hand across the table. Do we have an agreement? Amelia stared at his outstretched hand. 6 weeks of her life in exchange for her mother's health and financial security. A chance to be part of something that could save countless lives. And yet, the suddenness of it all, the strangeness, made warning bells sound in her mind. Behind her, she heard Marcus clear his throat nervously. Ms. Bennett, I need to remind you that your shift isn't over, and Table 7 has been waiting for. She won't be finishing her shift today. Marcus Reed interrupted without looking away from Amelia, or any other day. Your establishment will receive generous compensation for the inconvenience. Amelia's heart hammered in her chest as the patrons of Mezendore watched with bated breath. In this moment, her entire future hung in the balance. Time seemed to crystallize as Amelia stared at Connor Reed's extended hand. The weight of her mother's illness, the mountain of medical debt, grueling exhaustion of her 2 jobs pressed down on one side of an invisible scale. On the other, 6 weeks of isolation, a stranger's demands, and too many unknowns to count. I need to speak with my mother first, she said finally. Reed withdrew his hand. Of course, family loyalty works both ways. Glanced at his watch. I can have you at Memorial West in 20 minutes. You'll have 1 hour to discuss this with her. After that, I'll need your decision. Amelia nodded, her throat tight. And if I say no, then we part ways. His expression revealed nothing. You'll receive a month's salary from both your jobs as compensation for your time today and a letter of recommendation should you need future employment. Your mother's next treatment will be covered as a gesture of goodwill. Beyond that, our paths won't cross again. It was generous unexpectedly so, yet somehow made refusing even harder. Amelia looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly, then back at the man across the table. His eyes were impossible to read, blue as deep water and just as dangerous. Okay, she said. Let's talk to my mother. Marcus approached as she stood, his expression a mixture of confusion and concern. Amelia, what's happening? You can't just leave in the middle of... Reed silenced him with a look. Mr. Delacroix, your server has received an offer of employment she cannot refuse. A severance package for Ems. Bennett, reflecting 6 months' salary and benefits, will be wired to your establishment by close of business today. I trust that resolves any scheduling inconveniences. Without waiting for a response, Reed pulled out his phone and made a brief call. The car will be out front in 2 minutes, he told Amelia. As they walked through the restaurant, conversations hushed, then immediately sparked again in their wake. Amelia felt the stares of her co-workers, confusion, envy, suspicion, boring into her back. 6 months severance. It was more consideration than she'd received in years of loyal service. Outside, a sleek black Bentley waited at the curb, a driver holding the door. Amelia hesitated before sliding into buttery leather that probably cost more than her rent. Reed settled beside her, leaving a careful distance between them. Memorial West, he instructed the driver, then pressed pressed a button that raised a privacy partition. The car moved smoothly into traffic. Amelia stared out the window, watching her familiar world, the one of bus stops and discount grocers and payday loan shops, slide past from this new, insulated perspective. "You think I'm making a mistake?" Reed said suddenly. It wasn't a question. Amelia turned to him. "Pardon? Taking you on? Trusting someone I just met with work of this significance?" His gaze remained fixed forward. "You think it's impulsive or naive?" "I think it's calculating," Amelia replied honestly. "You evaluated me like a data set and made a strategic decision. There's nothing impulsive about it." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Perceptive, but incomplete," she continued. "Because I don't understand why me. Not really. There must be hundreds of people you could trust with this work. People with credentials, experience, people with agendas," Reed countered, "people embedded in networks that Reeves can access. You are ... uncontaminated by the industry. Your motivations are transparent." "My mother." "Precisely." Amelia studied him. "And what are your motivations, Mr. Reed? This algorithm would be worth billions. Why not just sell it to the highest bidder?" His expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "My sister died of ovarian cancer when she was 19. By the time they caught it, it was stage 4. She went from healthy to gone in 8 months." He paused. The initial symptoms were dismissed by 3 different doctors. They'd had this tool, she might be alive today. The admission hung between them, unexpected and raw. For the first time, Amelia saw something beyond the calculating billionaire, a glimpse of a person who had experienced the same helpless grief that haunted her nightmares. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Don't be. It was 15 years ago." His tone was final, closing the topic. "The algorithm will be open source, available to any medical facility regardless of funding. That's non-negotiable." The Bentley glided to a stop at Memorial West's entrance. Amelia had walked through these doors hundreds of times, but never like this, stepping out of a luxury car accompanied by one of the wealthiest men in the country. "I'll wait in the car," Reed said. 1 hour. Amelia nodded and hurried inside, the familiar antiseptic smell washing over her. Her mother's room was on the 3rd floor in the standard ward. She took the stairs rather than the elevator, needing the physical exertion to clear her head. Elizabeth Bennet was sitting up in bed when Amelia entered, a dog-eared paperback open on her lap. At 52, she looked 20 years older, her once vibrant features hollowed by illness and treatment. But her eyes, the same hazel as Amelia's, lit up with fierce love. "Sweetheart, you're early. I thought you were working until 8. Her gaze sharpened. "What's wrong?" Amelia sat carefully on the edge of the bed, taking her mother's thin hand. "Something's happened, Mom. Something ... unexpected." Over the next 30 minutes, Amelia explained everything: the spilled coffee, Reed's offer, the algorithm, the conditions. Throughout, her mother listened silently, her expression giving nothing away. "It sounds too good to be true," Elizabeth said finally. "That's what I thought, and yet he's waiting downstairs right now." Amelia nodded. "He says he'll cover your next treatment regardless of my decision, and I'll get a month's pay either way." Elizabeth squeezed her daughter's hand. "Which means you don't have to do this. We'll manage. We always have. But for how long, Mom?" Amelia's voice cracked. "The credit cards are maxed out. The payment plans are backlogged. I'm working 80-hour weeks and we're still drowning. I won't have you sell yourself. It's not like that." Amelia interrupted. "It's a job. A weird, intense job with extreme conditions, but it's still just a job. 6 weeks to change everything. To help develop something that could keep other families from going through what we have." Elizabeth studied her daughter's face. "You've already decided, haven't you?" Had she? Amelia realized with a start that she had. Somewhere between the restaurant and this hospital room, between Reed's offer and his unexpected vulnerability, she had made her choice. "Yes," she said softly. "I think I have." Elizabeth nodded slowly. "Then I have conditions of my own." She straightened in the bed, summoning the fierce strength that had always made her larger than life in Amelia's eyes. "I want to meet this man. I want legal documentation of everything he's promised. And I want a panic button, some way for you to contact me if anything goes wrong." Amelia smiled. "I'm pretty sure billionaires don't negotiate with cancer patients." "This one will," Elizabeth said firmly, "or you walk away. I taught you better than to sign away your life without reading the fine print." When Amelia returned to the Bentley exactly 59 minutes after leaving it, Reed was working on a tablet. He set it aside as she slid in beside him. "Well?" he asked. "My mother would like to meet you," Amelia replied. "She has terms of her own." For a moment, Reed looked genuinely surprised. Then he laughed. A short, genuine sound that transformed his face. "I see where you get it from," he said. "Let's not keep her waiting." Connor Reed seemed almost out of place in the sterile confines of the hospital room. His bespoke suit and commanding presence at odds with the institutional beige walls and the quiet hum of medical equipment. Yet if he felt uncomfortable, he showed no sign of it as he stood at Elizabeth Bennet's bedside, his posture respectful rather than imposing. "Mrs. Bennet," he began. "Miss Elizabeth," corrected. Despite her frail appearance, her voice was strong. "I never married." "And it's Elizabeth." Reed inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Elizabeth, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Did I have a choice? You're proposing to essentially purchase my daughter for the next 6 weeks." Her directness would have made Amelia cringe under normal circumstances, but these were far from normal circumstances. "Mom," she murmured in warning. Reed raised a hand. "It's a fair characterization from her perspective." He pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, bringing himself to eye level with Elizabeth. Deliberate choice that Amelia didn't miss. "You're protective of your daughter. daughter. I respect that. In your position, I would be too. Elizabeth studied him with the same analytical gaze that Amelia had felt in the restaurant. My daughter tells me you have a sister who died of cancer. If Reed was surprised by the personal question, he didn't show it. Had. Yes, Sophia. She was 19. I'm sorry, Elizabeth said, her expression softening slightly. No parent should outlive their child. No. Reed agreed, just as no daughter should have to work herself to exhaustion to keep her mother alive. The bluntness of his statement hung in the air. Elizabeth didn't flinch. And you propose to change that with what, a 6-week contract and a blank check? Not blank, Reed corrected. Precisely calculated. Your current medical debt stands at $127,463. Your insurance will not cover the experimental immunotherapy your oncologist has recommended, which costs an additional $84,000 per treatment cycle. The standard protocol is 3 cycles. Elizabeth's eyes widened. How do you know all that? It's what I do. Reed's tone was matter of fact. Your financial situation cannot sustain these costs. Even with Amelia's dual income, you're less than 60 days from complete insolvency. Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. She'd been juggling the bills, moving debt from one card to another, postponing some payments to make others. She knew they were in trouble, but hearing it laid out so clinically was devastating. Elizabeth reached for her daughter's hand. We've managed so far. At what cost? Reed asked quietly. Your daughter sleeps approximately 4 hours per night. She's lost 11 pounds in 3 months. Her academic career has been indefinitely deferred. And despite these sacrifices, you're still losing ground. The room fell silent except for the soft beep of the heart monitor. Elizabeth's grip on Amelia's hand tightened. What are your terms? Elizabeth finally asked. Reed produced a tablet from his briefcase. Amelia will be employed by my private foundation, not my company. Her position will be classified as special research assistant with a base salary of $20,000 weekly for 6 weeks. Full medical benefits for both of you will activate immediately and continue for 1 year after the contract's completion, regardless of outcome. He swiped to the next screen. She will reside at my property for the duration. Her communications will be limited and monitored, not to control her, but to prevent information leaks. The work we're doing cannot fall into the wrong hands. And if she wants to leave? Elizabeth asked sharply. She may terminate the contract at any time. She retain all compensation received to that point, but will forfeit any remaining salary. Reed looked directly at Elizabeth. However, I should be clear, if she leaves before the work is complete, the algorithm may never reach the people who need it, including future patients like you. Elizabeth's expression hardened. Don't use my illness to manipulate my daughter. I'm simply stating facts, Reed replied evenly. This isn't about profit. It's about preventing needless deaths. Amelia intervened before the tension could escalate. What about my mother? I need to know she'll be cared for while I'm gone. Reed nodded. My foundation maintains a private patient suite at Westlake Medical Center, so Elizabeth will be transferred there tomorrow. She'll have round-the-clock nursing care, access to all of her current physicians, plus consultation with any specialist she requires. Elizabeth shook her head. I don't need special treatment. You absolutely do, Reed interrupted. The immunotherapy your doctor wants to try has a significantly higher success rate when administered in conjunction with a comprehensive wellness protocol. Westlake can provide that. Memorial West cannot. Amelia felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. She'd researched the treatment options exhaustively. Red was right about the outcomes. In my conditions? Elizabeth asked, undeterred. Reed raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. First, Amelia will have an encrypted phone that connects directly to me. No monitoring, no restrictions. Her lifeline. Reed considered this acceptable with one caveat. The device remains in a secure locker except during designated times, 30 minutes, twice daily. Elizabeth nodded. Second, she receives copies of all medical updates regarding my condition in real time. No filtering, no delays. Agreed. Third, this contract includes a non-disclosure agreement that works both ways. Whatever she learns about your work, she can't reveal. And whatever you learn about her or about us, you keep to yourself. Our privacy is non-negotiable. Reed's lips twitched in what might have been admiration. Done. Finally, Elizabeth continued, she gets a kill switch. If at any point she feels uncomfortable, threatened, or manipulated, she can activate it. My understanding is that you're a man who values control, Mr. Reed. This is the one area where you will have none. The room fell silent as Reed considered her demand. Finally, he nodded once. Your daughter's safety and comfort are paramount to the success of this project. I accept your term. He handed the tablet to Elizabeth, who scrolled carefully through the digital contract. Amelia watched her mother's face, recognizing the concentrated expression from years of watching her review student papers during her teaching days before the cancer. Add these conditions as an addendum, Elizabeth said, returning the tablet. Then we have a deal. Reed made the modifications with swift, precise movements, then passed the tablet to Elizabeth again. She reviewed the changes, then signed with her finger. Reed added his own signature, then looked at Amelia. It's your choice, he said quietly. It always has been. Amelia took the tablet, the weight of the decision pressing on her. 6 weeks away from everything she knew. 6 weeks to secure her mother's future. 6 weeks that could change countless lives. She signed. Reed stood. The transfer team will arrive for Elizabeth tomorrow at 9 a.m. A car will collect you from your apartment at 8 a.m. Pack lightly. Anything you need will be provided. As Reed turned to leave, Elizabeth called after him. Miss Reed. One more thing. He paused at the doorway. If you hurt my daughter physically, emotionally, in any way, there is no place on this earth where you could hide from me. Despite her frail appearance, there was steel in her voice. Are we clear? Reed met her gaze unflinchingly. Crystal clear, Elizabeth. I wouldn't expect anything less. After he left, Amelia collapsed into the chair beside her mother's bed. What have I just agreed to? Elizabeth squeezed her hand. Something terrifying. Something necessary. She studied her daughter's face. But there's more to this man than he's telling us. What do you mean? He could have hired anyone, offered them twice what he's paying you, but he chose you. Elizabeth's eyes were thoughtful. Watch him carefully, Amelia. Learn what he's not saying. The next morning arrived with surreal swiftness. Amelia stood in her tiny apartment, a single suitcase at her feet. Her few precious possessions, her mother's wedding ring, the nursing school acceptance letter, photos of happier times were tucked safely inside. The rest of her meager life could stay behind. At precisely 8 a.m., her phone chimed with a text message, car waiting downstairs. She took one last look around the cramped space that had been home for the past 3 years, then closed the door behind her. Whether she was walking towards salvation or something far more complicated remained to be seen. The car that awaited Amelia wasn't the Bentley from yesterday, but a nondescript black SUV with tinted windows. The driver, a woman with close-cropped silver hair and the watchful eyes of someone with military training, took her suitcase without comment. Ms. Bennett, she said, her voice clipped and professional. I'm Diane, head of Miss Reed's security team. Amelia nodded, suddenly tongue-tied. The enormity of what she'd agreed to was finally sinking in. The drive took them out of the city, through suburbs that gradually gave way to winding roads flanked by old-growth forests. After nearly an hour, they turned onto a private drive marked only by a discreet camera mounted on a stone pillar. We're approaching Hawthorne, Diane said, breaking her silence. Mr. Reed's primary resident, as if one home couldn't contain the entirety of his existence. Amelia stared through the window as they rounded a curve and the house came into view, though house seemed inadequate. What rose before them was a masterpiece of glass and stone, perched on a cliff overlooking a lake, its clean lines merging with the natural landscape rather than imposing upon it. It's beautiful, Amelia murmured. Diane's expression remained neutral. It's secure. The property has a 3-mile perimeter, continuous surveillance, and a response team on site 24/7. Is that ... normal for him? Nothing about Reed is normal. There was something in Diane's tone, not quite affection, but a grudging respect. He values his privacy, and the work happening here requires extraordinary precautions. The SUV pulled to a stop at the entrance where a glass door slid open silently. Diane led Amelia inside through a foyer of polished concrete and into a soaring central space where sunlight poured through walls of windows. The interior was minimalist, but not cold natural materials, and carefully placed art created a space that felt both breathtaking and oddly welcoming. Your biometric data has already been added to the security system, Diane explained, guiding her toward what looked like an ordinary wall. She placed her palm against it and a hidden panel slid open. Your quarters are through here. Amelia followed her down a corridor to a door that opened into a suite larger than her entire apartment. A sitting area with comfortable furniture faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Through an archway, she glimpsed a bedroom with a king-sized bed draped in crisp white linens. The bathroom is through there, Diane pointed. Closet is fully stocked with clothing in your size. Anything specific you need, tell the house system. Meals are at 7, noon, and 6:30 in the main kitchen, unless otherwise specified. Mr. Reed will meet with you at 9 in the lab. With that, she turned to leave. Wait, Amelia called. Where's my mother now? Diane paused. Ms. Elizabeth Bennett was transferred to Westlake Medical Center at 9:17 a.m. She's currently settled in the Lakeside Suite with Dr. Helen Cho, her attending physician. Her condition is stable. The precision of the information was both reassuring and unnerving. Thank you, I said. Once alone, Amelia explored her new surrounding. The bathroom featured a rainfall shower and a soaking tub positioned before another wall of windows, though she noted a privacy film that could be activated with a touch. The closet contained dozens of items in exactly her size: jeans, blouses, sweaters, even shoes, all of better quality than anything she'd ever owned. On the bedside table sat a sleek black device resembling a smartphone. A note beside it read, "Your secure line to Elizabeth. Available from 8 to 8:30 a.m. and 8 to 8:30 p.m. daily." She checked her watch. It was 9:45 a.m. She'd missed the morning window. Her stomach knotted with a mixture of anxiety and guilt, even though her mother had known this was coming. At precisely 9 o'clock, Amelia stood in the central living area, uncertain where to go. A gentle chime sounded and a section of wall illuminated with a subtle blue light. Ms. Bennett came a disembodied voice. "Please follow the guidance lights to the laboratory." She trailed the illuminated path through the house, down a staircase, and into what must have been built deep into the cliff face. A final door slid open to reveal a vast space filled with cutting-edge technology. Workstations with multiple screens, holographic displays, and equipment she couldn't begin to identify lined the walls. Connor Reed stood at the center, examining a three-dimensional projection hovering in the air. He was dressed more casually than she'd seen him before, dark jeans and a simple gray Henley that somehow looked as expensive as his suits. He dismissed the projection with a gesture as she entered. "Right on time," he said. "Did you get settled in?" "Yes. Thank you. The room is ... excessive, but nice." A hint of amusement crossed his face. "Excessive is my specialty, apparently." He indicated a workstation. This is yours. Amelia approached it cautiously. I don't understand what you expect me to do. I told you I'm not a programmer. No, but you are observant, detail-oriented, and you understand medical contexts in ways many programmers don't. Reed activated her screens with a wave of his hand. The algorithm processes blood work results through 7 distinct filtering systems before applying the predictive matrix. Your job is to help me verify that the medical logic is sound at each step. And you think I can do that with my community college nursing prerequisites? I think you can do that because you've lived with cancer for a year. You understand it in ways textbooks can't teach. His gaze was intent. Your mother's type of cancer creates specific marker patterns. Probably reviewed her blood work dozens of times, looking for improvements or declines. That personal experience is invaluable. Amelia was taken aback by his insight. She had indeed pored over every test result, learning to spot the subtle changes that indicated whether a treatment was working. How do we start? She asked. Reed gestured and a holographic keyboard appeared at her workstation. I've already begun reconstructing the base code. Today we'll establish your baseline knowledge and create a workflow for the next 3 hours. Reed walked her through the fundamentals of the algorithm, explaining complex concepts with surprising patience. Though much of the technical jargon went over her head, Amelia found she could follow the medical logic, even suggesting refinements to how certain markers were weighted. That's actually an improvement, Reed said when she pointed out that one particular protein should trigger a different response threshold in patients with autoimmune conditions. He made the adjustment, and the simulation showed a 3% increase in accuracy. By noon, Amelia's head was swimming with information, but she felt the first stirrings of confidence. This wasn't beyond her capabilities after all. As they took a break, she worked up the courage to ask, why didn't you just have the algorithm backed up somewhere? It seems risky to keep it only on one laptop. Reed's expression darkened. Because Thomas Reeves isn't the only one who would steal it. There are pharmaceutical companies that would pay billions to suppress this technology. Why would they want to suppress something that could save lives? Because early detection means earlier, less expensive intervention. It means fewer rounds of high-margin chemotherapy drugs. It means a fundamental shift in how cancer is treated. His voice hardened. The entire oncology industry is built around treating cancer after it's established, not preventing it from spreading in the first place. Amelia felt a chill run through her. You're saying they'd rather let people die than lose profits? I'm saying corporations aren't people. They don't think in terms of individual lives, they think in terms of quarterly earnings. Reed's eyes met hers, which is why this algorithm needs to be perfect, unassailable, and in the public domain before anyone can stop it. A question formed in Amelia's mind, one that had been nagging at her since the restaurant. Mr. Reed, did you really spill that coffee? His expression remained unreadable for a long moment. Then the corner of his mouth lifted in the barest hint of a smile. Lunch is ready upstairs, Ms. Bennett. We have a lot more work to do this afternoon. Days at Hawthorne fell into a rhythm that Amelia found both exhausting and exhilarating. Mornings began with her first call to her mother, followed by intense work sessions with Reed that often stretched until late evening. By the end of the first week, she had developed a rudimentary understanding of how the algorithm processed data, enough to provide meaningful input on the medical aspects. The C-reactive protein threshold needs to be dynamic, she said on the 7th day, pointing to a section of code Reed had just reconstructed. It fluctuates naturally with age and other inflammatory conditions. Reed paused, fingers hovering over his keyboard. You're right, the static cutoff would create false positives in older patients. He made the adjustment, then glanced at her with newfound respect. Where did you learn that? My mother's rheumatologist explained it when her levels spiked during treatment. Amelia shrugged. Some things you remember when they affect someone you love. Something flickered across Reed's face, recognition perhaps, or a shadow of his own loss. He said nothing, but later that evening, Amelia found a collection of advanced medical texts on her bedside table. By the end of the second week, their working relationship had evolved into something approaching collaboration. Reed still led the technical development, but increasingly turned to her for insights on how the algorithm would function in real-world medical settings. A rural clinic wouldn't have access to mass spectrometry, she pointed out during one session. Could we redesign this component to work with standard blood panels? Reed considered this, then initiated a complex series of adjustments. It reduces accuracy by 2.7%, but increases accessibility by an estimated 63%. A worthwhile trade-off. He nodded appreciatively. Good catch. Despite the intensity of their work, Reed remained largely a mystery. He worked with singular focus, spoke little about himself, and often disappeared for hours at a time to deal with what he referred to only as company matters. Amelia occasionally caught glimpses of news segments about Reed Enterprises on the kitchen television during meals, but they revealed little beyond the public persona she already knew. Their interactions were strictly professional, yet Amelia found herself increasingly curious about the man behind the billionaire facade. She noticed small details, how he absently rubbed the scar on his left wrist when deep in thought, how he always ate the same breakfast, 2 soft-boiled eggs, sourdough toast, black coffee, how classical music played softly in the lab whenever he worked alone. The secure phone calls with her mother became Amelia's lifeline to the outside world. Elizabeth's reports were consistently positive. The care at Westlake was exceptional. The experimental treatment was showing promising results, and her energy was slowly returning. And how is he treating you? Elizabeth asked during every call, her tone cautious. Professionally, Amelia always answered, "The work is fascinating, Mom. I feel like I'm actually helping create something important. Just remember why you're there," Elizabeth would say. 6 weeks, then home. But as the days passed, home became an increasingly nebulous concept. Her tiny apartment felt like a distant memory compared to Hawthorne's soaring spaces, and the intellectual stimulation of the lab. For the first time since her mother's diagnosis, Amelia was using her mind to its full capacity, and the sensation was intoxicating. On the 16th day, everything changed. Amelia was alone in the lab, reviewing a simulation of how the algorithm would process borderline cases. Reed had been called away for an emergency video conference with his executive team, leaving her to continue independently. The work was engrossing, and she barely registered the muted ping of an incoming message on Reed's primary workstation. The system automatically projected the notification into the air above, his desk a security feature designed to ensure urgent communications were never missed. What caught Amelia's eye wasn't the message itself, but the name of the sender, Thomas Reeves. Her fingers froze over her keyboard. The message preview was visible from where she sat. "Connor, reconsidering your offer. My investors are getting nervous. Perhaps we can reach an accommodation before this escalates further. Let's meet. Same place as before." Amelia stared at the floating text, uncertainty churning in her stomach. Reed had described Reeves as the enemy, a thief who had stolen his work and would rush an inferior version to market. Yet here was evidence of some kind of negotiation between them. The lab door slid open, and Reed entered. His expression darkened as he saw the projected message, and with a sharp gesture, he dismissed it from view. "You shouldn't have seen that," he said, his voice tight. Amelia stood, suddenly aware of how isolated she was. "Are you working with Reeves?" "It's complicated." "It doesn't seem complicated. Either you're trying to stop him from releasing a dangerous algorithm, or you're in some kind of business negotiation. Which is it?" Reed's face hardened into the mask she recognized from their first meeting. The calculating billionaire. Not the passionate innovator she'd worked alongside for 2 weeks. "You don't have the full picture. Then give it to me." Amelia's voice gained strength. "I'm living in your house, working on your project, while my mother's life hangs in the balance. I deserve to know what I'm really part of." For a long moment, Reed simply studied her, as if recalculating a complex equation. Then his shoulders dropped slightly. "Let's go upstairs," he said quietly. In the kitchen, Reed poured 2 glasses of water, his movements deliberate, buying time to organize his thoughts. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. "Thomas Reeves was my best friend before he was my business partner. We built the early versions of the algorithm together during our doctoral work at MIT. When my sister was diagnosed, it became personal for me. For him, it remained theoretical, a challenging problem to solve." Reed sat across from Amelia, turning the glass in his hands. "After Sophia died, I became obsessed. Reeves thought I was compromising the science with my urgency. He wanted more testing, more verification before release. We had a fundamental disagreement about timeline. So you split up," Amelia said. "I bought him out. It was his right to continue research independently. I couldn't stop that. But his version prioritizes accuracy over accessibility. It would require expensive equipment, proprietary systems. It would reach the wealthy first, if at all. That's not what I promised Sophia." The message mentioned an offer. Reed's expression hardened. "I offered to acquire his company last month. He refused. Now his investors are pressuring him to reconsider." "Why would they do that?" "Because I've been systematically poaching his top researchers and purchasing the specialized equipment his version requires. His supply chain is collapsing." There was no remorse in Reed's voice, only cold calculation. "Sometimes you have to be ruthless to do the right thing." The words sent a chill through Amelia. "Is that why you hired me? Another ruthless calculation?" Reed met her gaze directly. "Initially, yes. You were in the right place at exactly the right time. Someone with medical knowledge, desperate financial need, and no connections to the tech world. Perfect for what I needed." The honesty stung, though Amelia had suspected as much. And now, something shifted in Reed's expression, a subtle softening around the eyes. "Now you've proven yourself valuable beyond those calculations. Your insights have improved the algorithm in ways I hadn't anticipated." It wasn't quite a compliment, but coming from Reed, it felt significant. Amelia took a deep breath, weighing her next words carefully. "I need to see my mother. In person. Tomorrow." Reed frowned. "That wasn't our agreement. I'm modifying the terms." Amelia straightened her shoulders. "You've been honest with me finally. I appreciate that. But I need to look my mother in the eye and tell her I still believe in what we're doing here. Can you understand that?" For several long moments, Reed simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. Amelia held her ground, heart hammering but resolve firm. This was her line in the sand. "You understand the security risks," he finally said. It wasn't a question. "I understand you're concerned about information leaks. I'm not asking to leave the program or breach confidentiality. I'm asking for 3 hours with my mother." Reed's fingers drummed once on the countertop, the first truly unconscious gesture Amelia had seen from him. "Diane will accompany you. You'll use a secure vehicle. No phones except the dedicated line. 3 hours, no extension." Relief washed over her. "Thank you." Reed stood, conversation clearly over. "We've lost enough work time today. I'll expect you in the lab in 15 minutes." The next morning, Amelia found herself in the back of another black SUV, Diane in the driver's seat, heading toward Westlake Medical Center. The security chief remained silent for most of the journey, breaking her reserve only as they approached the hospital. "Mr. Reed doesn't do this," she said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Ever. Do what?" "Change established parameter." Diane's hands adjusted minutely on the steering wheel. "In the 6 years I've worked for him, I've never seen him modify a security protocol once it's set." Amelia absorbed this. Maybe he's evolving. A ghost of a smile touched Diane's lips. Maybe he is. Westlake Medical Center bore little resemblance to Memorial West. The private facility occupied a campus of sleek, modern buildings surrounded by meticulously landscaped grounds. Inside, it felt more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and an atmosphere of hushed efficiency. Elizabeth's suite was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a Japanese-inspired garden. When Amelia entered, she found her mother sitting in an armchair reading, her appearance a stunning transformation from just 2 weeks earlier. Her color had improved, she'd gained weight, and her eyes were bright with energy Amelia hadn't seen in months. "Mom." Amelia rushed forward, embracing her carefully. "There's my girl," Elizabeth murmured, holding her tight. When they separated, she studied Amelia's face. "You look different. So do you. The treatment, it's working?" Elizabeth nodded. "Dr. Cho is calling it a remarkable response. The new immunotherapy combined with their integrative approach, ... She gestured around the suite. "I feel better than I have since before the diagnosis." Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes. "That's incredible. What about you? You looked out sharper somehow? More focused?" Amelia settled into the chair opposite her mother. "The work is challenging me in ways I never expected. I'm learning so much, Mom. Not just about the algorithm, but about medicine, data analysis, even business strategy. And Reed himself? What have you learned about him?" The question gave Amelia pause. What did she know about Connor Reed after 16 days? He was brilliant, driven, ruthless when necessary. He kept his emotions tightly controlled, yet occasionally revealed flashes of something deeper, genuine passion for saving lives, lingering grief for his sister. "He's complicated," she said finally. "He orchestrated our meeting at the restaurant, Mom. The spilled coffee was deliberate. He needed someone like me for the project and created a situation to make it happen." Elizabeth's expression darkened. "That's manipulation, Amelia." "It is," she agreed, "but I'm starting to understand why he operates that way. Everything he does has a purpose, a calculated outcome. He's been fighting this battle to make the algorithm accessible to everyone for years, against competitors, against the medical establishment, even against his former friend. That doesn't excuse deceiving. No, it doesn't." Amelia sighed. "But when I confronted him about it, he was honest, and he let me come see you today, even though it wasn't part of our agreement." Elizabeth reached for her daughter's hand. "Be careful. Men like Reed don't change their fundamental nature, even for good causes, I know." Amelia squeezed her mother's finger. "But I also know this algorithm could help millions of people like you. That matters too." They spent the remaining hours discussing Elizabeth's treatment in detail. The experimental immunotherapy was targeting her specific cancer markers with remarkable precision, and the comprehensive support program, nutrition, physical therapy, psychological counseling, was addressing the holistic aspects of her recovery. "Dr. Cho wants to write a case study about my response rate," Elizabeth said with a small, proud smile. Apparently it's statistically significant. As their visit drew to a close, a nurse arrived with Elizabeth's afternoon medications. Amelia recognized the routine from Memorial West, but here the process included a detailed review of each medication's purpose, potential side effects, and interactions. "This one is new," Amelia noted, pointing to a small blue capsule. The nurse nodded. "It's part of Dr. Cho's proprietary protocol, a metabolic support compound that helps the immunotherapy target cancer cells more effectively." Something clicked in Amelia's mind, a connection to a component of Reed's algorithm that analyzed metabolic markers. "How long has that been part of the treatment?" "Since day one here," the nurse replied. "It's showing excellent results across Dr. Cho's patient cohort." On the drive back to Hawthorne, Amelia's mind raced. Should the proprietary protocol sounded remarkably similar to theoretical applications they'd been building into the algorithm applications that weren't public knowledge. "Diane," she asked suddenly, "does Connor Reed have any connection to Westlake Medical Center, ownership, board membership, anything like that?" Diane's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Reed's foundation provided the initial funding for Westlake's Innovative Oncology Unit 5 years ago. Dr. Helen Cho was recruited from Johns Hopkins specifically to lead it. The pieces fell into place with startling clarity. Reed wasn't just developing an algorithm for future use, he was already implementing aspects of it in clinical setting, using his foundation to fund real-world applications while maintaining public silence. When Amelia returned to the lab, Reed was immersed in code, holographic displays surrounding him like a cocoon of light. He dismissed them as she entered. "How is Elizabeth?" he asked, his tone neutral. "Responding remarkably well to Dr. Cho's proprietary protocol," Amelia replied, watching his face carefully. A flicker of something surprise perhaps crossed his features before the mask returned. "I'm glad to hear it. The metabolic support compound is part of the algorithm's application framework. You're already implementing this in the real world." Reed studied her for a long moment. "Portions of it, yes. The components we're certain are effective. Westlake serves as a controlled testing environment, with real patients, like my mother, with patients who have exhausted traditional options and provided informed consent for experimental treatments. His voice hardened slightly. Your mother is receiving the best care available on the planet. Is that a problem? Amelia shook her head slowly. Not a problem. Just another revelation about how many layers exist to your operations. How many versions of the truth you maintain simultaneously. Reed's expression remained impassive, but his eyes searched hers. Does that change your commitment to the project? No, she said after a moment. But it does change how I understand my role in it, which is, I'm not just helping rebuild something that was lost. I'm helping bridge the gap between what's already working in limited settings and what could be available to everyone. She stepped closer to his workstation. So let's get back to work. The next 10 days marked a transformation in their working relationship. Reed began treating Amelia less like an assistant and more like a collaborator, soliciting her input on increasingly complex aspects of the algorithm. For her part, Amelia grew bolder in her suggestions, drawing on her observations from her mother's treatment to refine the predictive models. The pattern recognition for ovarian cancer is still too rigid, she pointed out during a late-night work session. Look at my mother's markers. They don't follow the standard progression, but the response to treatment has been exceptional. Reed enlarged the data display, studying the numbers. She's an outlier. Her metabolic adaptation to the protocol is unusual, but what if those outliers are the key to improving early detection? Amelia reached past him to highlight a specific sequence. If we adjust the baseline here and here, we could catch these variant expressions weeks earlier. Reed considered this, then implemented her changes. The simulation results flashed green, a 4.3% improvement in early detection rates. That's significant, he admitted, a rare note of surprise in his voice. Amelia couldn't help feeling a flush of pride. It might be worth examining the other outlier cases at Westlake. There could be patterns we're missing. The next morning, Reed arranged for Dr. Cho to share anonymized data from her patient cohort. The information provided invaluable real-world validation for their theoretical models, accelerating their progress substantially. By the end of the fourth week, they had reconstructed approximately 70% of the original algorithm with several improvements. Amelia found herself thinking less about the end of her contract and more about the potential impact of their work. The hospital in my hometown doesn't even have an oncologist on staff, she told Reed over a rare dinner they shared in the kitchen. Patients have to drive 2 hours for specialized care. This algorithm could change that completely. Reed nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's the vision. Democratizing early detection so that geography and economics become irrelevant factors in cancer survival rates. Is that why you're making it open source? To ensure access for everyone? Partially. Reed set down his fork. It's also a strategic necessity. If the algorithm is proprietary, pharmaceutical companies will find ways to restrict or control it. If it belongs to everyone, they can't contain it. But you could make billions selling it, Amelia pointed out. Something darkened in Reed's expression. I have billions. What I don't have is my sister back. The words hung between them, raw and honest in a way Reed rarely allowed himself to be. After a moment, he continued more evenly. The timeline is becoming critical. Reeves is preparing for a limited release of his version within the next month. Once that happens, hospitals and insurance companies will begin building infrastructure around his proprietary system. The window for a truly open alternative will narrow significantly. That's why you've been pushing so hard, Amelia realized. We have 18 days left in our contract, Reed said, his gaze direct. I believe we can complete the algorithm in that time, but it will require even more intensive work than we've done so far. Our contract wasn't lost on Amelia. Somewhere in the past weeks, the dynamic had shifted from employer-employee to something approaching equals united by a common purpose. I'm ready, she said simply. The next morning, Amelia's secure call with her mother brought unexpected news. Elizabeth's latest scans showed a remarkable reduction in tumor size, so significant that Dr. Cho was cautiously using the word remission. They're calling it a breakthrough case, Elizabeth said, her voice stronger than Amelia had heard in a year. Dr. Cho wants to present my case at the National Oncology Conference next month. Joy and relief swept through Amelia like a physical force. That's incredible, Mom. I can't believe it, Doctor. Cho says it's the combination of treatments, but particularly the experimental compound. She mentioned it's part of a broader research initiative. Elizabeth paused. Something your Miss Reed is involved with, I suspect. He's not my Mr. Reed. Amelia corrected automatically, though the protest felt hollow even to her own ears. Her mother's tone was knowing. Well, whatever your relationship, please thank him for me. I feel like myself again for the first time in so long. When Amelia returned to the lab that morning, she found Reed engaged in an intense video conference. His expression was thunderous as he jabbed at data points projected in the air. The timing isn't coincidental, Thomas, he was saying as Amelia entered. You're rushing an incomplete solution to market because you know we're close. Thomas Reeves' voice filled the room. Close to what, Connor? Another theoretical victory that helps no one in the real world. My investors want results, not ideals. Your results. We'll create a closed system that benefits only those who can afford it, and your open source fantasy will devalue years of research and development. Reeves shot back. You can't just give away technology this valuable. The medical industry doesn't work that way. It will when we're finished. Reeves laughed, the sound brittle with tension. Always the revolutionary. Did it ever occur to you that perhaps the system exists for a reason? That expertise and innovation deserve to be compensated? Not at the cost of human lives. Reed's voice was cold. We developed this together after Sophia died. You know what it was meant to be? It was meant to be viable, Reeves countered. Your sister clouded your judgment, Connor. You made it personal when it should have remained business. Reed's expression hardened to granite. You have 48 hours to reconsider my offer before I proceed with alternative measures. Threats now? How disappointing. Reeves sighed theatrically. I've secured FDA fast-track approval for our clinical trials. The announcement goes public tomorrow. Once that happens, even you can't stop the momentum. The connection terminated, leaving the lab in tense silence. Reed stood motionless, his back to Amelia, shoulders rigid with barely contained fury. I take it that didn't go well, she said quietly. Reed turned, his expression shifting as he registered her presence. Reeves is accelerating his timeline. He's going public tomorrow with a clinical trial announcement that will effectively position his version as the industry standard before ours is complete. Can he do that? You said his version is flawed. Not flawed enough to fail trials, Reed replied grimly. Just flawed enough to miss 15 to 20% of early-stage cases and require proprietary equipment that most hospitals can't afford. He ran a hand through his Haran, a rare display of genuine emotion. Once the medical establishment begins adopting his protocols, convincing them to switch to an open-source alternative becomes exponentially more difficult. Amelia processed this. So we have until tomorrow to finish an algorithm that should take another... No. Reed's expression changed. Calculation replacing frustration. We have until tomorrow to release something that disrupts his announcement and buys us the time we need. What did you mean by alternative measures? Reed's gaze was steady. There are multiple ways to win a war, Miss Bennett, some more public than others. The next 18 hours unfolded in a blur of frantic activity. Reed summoned a team of trusted programmers to Hawthorne, 6 men and women who arrived via helicopter within hours of his call. They set up workstations throughout the lab, creating what felt to Amelia like a war room. These are the only people outside this house who have seen portions of the complete algorithm, Reed explained as he introduced them. Each has worked on isolated components without knowing the full scope of the project. Amelia watched as Reed briefed the team, struck by the transformation in his demeanor. Gone was the solitary, secretive researcher. In his place stood a commanding general, coordinating a complex battle plan with precision and authority. Thomas Reeves goes public at 9 a.m. tomorrow with his version of the algorithm, he told the assembled group. Our objective is not to beat him to market. That's impossible given our current timeline. Instead, we're creating what I call a disrupt. He gestured and a complex diagram appeared in the air. This is a standalone component of our algorithm focusing exclusively on pancreatic cancer, one of the most difficult cancers to detect early and consequently one with the lowest survival rates. Amelia recognized the module they'd refined just days earlier, incorporating her insights from Elizabeth's treatment data. This component alone achieves 91% accuracy in detecting pancreatic cancer at stage 1. Using standard blood markers, Reed continued. Reeves' version manages only 62% accuracy for the same condition. We're going to release this single module as an open source tool to the medical community 12 hours before his announcement. One of the programmers, a woman with sharp features and silver-streaked hair, frowned. You're giving away a crucial component of the full algorithm? I'm establishing our technological superiority, Reed corrected. When hospitals compare our freely available pancreatic module against Reeves' full-spectrum solution and find ours dramatically outperforms his in this critical area, it will create immediate doubt about his entire platform and buy us the time we need to complete the full algorithm, Amelia added, understanding the strategy. Reed nodded. Precisely. The medical community will wait to see our complete solution rather than investing immediately in Reeves' inferior product. The team dispersed to their assigned tasks, leaving Amelia momentarily alone with Reed. You're not just disrupting his announcement, she observed quietly. You're positioning this as a direct competition between open source and proprietary approaches to healthcare, making it a public debate. A smile ghosted across Reed's face. Sometimes the most effective weapon is transparency. As the night progressed, Amelia found herself at the center of the operation, translating between the medical and technical aspects of the module. Her community college medical training seemed insignificant compared to the advanced degrees held by everyone else in the room, yet her practical understanding of cancer progression and treatment outcomes proved invaluable. We need to adjust the methylation sensitivity here, she told one programmer, pointing to a section of code. Based on my mother's case, these markers appear earlier in the disease process than previously documented. The woman looked skeptical until Reed intervened. Make the change, he instructed. Ms. Bennett's insights have consistently improved our accuracy metrics. By 3 a.m., exhaustion had settled over the team. Reed ordered a short break and people dispersed to find coffee or catnap in corners of the lab. Amelia stepped outside onto a small terrace cut into the cliff face, gulping the cold night air. Reed joined her moments later, 2 steaming mugs in hand. He offered one to her silently. "Thank you," she said, wrapping her fingers around the warm ceramic, "for the coffee and for backing me in there. Those people have PhDs from MIT and Stanford. I'm just someone who understands the human cost of cancer more intimately than any of them," Reed interrupted. "Credentials aren't everything, Miss Bennett." "Amelia," she said suddenly, "after a month of working 18-hour days together, you could probably start using my first name." He considered this, then nodded. "Amelia." The sound of her name in his voice created an unexpected warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, looking out over the moonlit lake below. "I didn't plan for any of this," Reed said finally. "Having you here working with the team this way, it wasn't part of the original calculation. Is that a problem?" "No." He turned to face her. "It's an improvement." Coming from Reed, it was high praise indeed. Amelia felt a flush of pleasure that she immediately tried to temper. This was still a business arrangement, she reminded herself. 6 weeks of her life exchanged for her mother's health and financial security. The fact that she had come to respect Reed, perhaps even like him, shouldn't complicate that. "We should get back," she said, finishing her coffee. "The team will be waiting." By 8 a.m. they were ready. The pancreatic module had been packaged, documented, and prepared for release to the medical community. Reed gathered everyone in the central area of the lab. "What we're doing today will save lives," he said simply. "Not just eventually, but immediately. There are patients in hospitals right now whose pancreatic cancer will be detected months or years earlier because of this module. Remember that when Reeves and his investors start their inevitable attacks." With a gesture, he initiated the upload to a specially prepared server. Within minutes, notifications would reach every major teaching hospital, cancer center, and medical research institution in the country. As the team watched the distribution progress, Amelia's secure phone chimed, the tone she'd programmed for Westlake Medical Center. Her heart seized. Calls outside her designated windows were only supposed to come in emergencies. "Excuse me," she murmured to Reed, stepping away to answer. "Miss Bennett?" Dr. Cho's voice was tense. "I need you to come to Westlake immediately. It's your mother." "What happened? Is she all right?" Panic clawed at Amelia's throat. "She experienced a severe reaction to her treatment this morning. We've stabilized her, but her condition is serious. She's asking for you." The room seemed to tilt. "I'll be there right away." When she lowered the phone, Reed was already at her side, concern evident in his expression. "Elizabeth?" She had a reaction to the treatment. "They've stabilized her, but ... single quotes." Amelia's voice broke. "I need to go. Now." Reed nodded immediately. "I'll take you myself. The team can handle the release." Within minutes, they were in Reed's personal vehicle, not the Bentley, but a high-performance Tesla that he drove himself, pushing well beyond the speed limit as they raced toward Westlake. "This doesn't make sense," Amelia said, her thoughts chaotic with worry. She was improving. The scans showed remission. Reed's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What exactly did Dr. Cho say?" "Just that she had a severe reaction to her treatment this morning. That she's stabilized, but serious." Amelia pressed her hands to her face. "God, I should have been there." Reed's Tesla screeched to a halt in Westlake's circular drive. Before Amelia could even unbuckle her seatbelt, he was out of the car, striding toward the entrance with purpose. She hurried after him, struggling to keep pace with his longer strides. Dr. Cho met them at the entrance to the intensive care unit, her typically composed demeanor visibly strained. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Reed, thank you for coming so quickly." "What happened?" Amelia demanded. "She was in remission. We're still determining that," Dr. Cho replied, guiding them toward a consultation room rather than Elizabeth's suite. The reaction occurred shortly after her morning medication. She experienced sudden tachycardia, followed by hypotension and respiratory distress. Reed's expression darkened. "Which medications were administered?" "Her standard protocol, including the experimental compound." Dr. Cho hesitated. "However, preliminary testing suggests the compound may have been contaminated." "Contaminated?" Reed's voice was dangerously quiet. "Or tampered with?" The question hung in the air for a moment before Dr. Cho nodded almost imperceptibly. "Security footage shows an unauthorized individual in the medication preparation area at 4:17 a.m. We've alerted hospital security and the police." Reed pulled out his phone. "Send me the footage immediately." As Dr. Cho stepped away to comply, Amelia fought to process what she was hearing. "Are you saying someone deliberately poisoned my mother?" "Not fatally," Reed said, his voice tight. "The timing is too convenient. This happened hours before our module release and Reeves' announcement." "You think Reeves did this?" "That's insane. He's your competitor, not a criminal." "Reeves works with investors who have billions at stake," Reed replied grimly, "some of whom have pharmaceutical interests that would be severely impacted by our algorithm." Amelia felt sick. "I need to see my mother." "Now," Dr. Cho returned. "She's conscious but weak." 10 minutes, no more." Elizabeth lay in a hospital bed surrounded by monitoring equipment, looking suddenly frail again after weeks of improvement. When she saw Amelia, she managed a weak smile. "So much for remission," she whispered. Amelia took her hand, fighting tears. "What happened? Did you feel strange after taking your medication?" "Like fire in my veins," Elizabeth murmured. "Then nothing until I woke up here." Her gaze shifted to Reed, who stood silently in the doorway. "You're not surprised by this?" No, he admitted, but I should have anticipated it. This is because of the algorithm. It wasn't a question. Reed stepped closer to the bed. Yes, and I'm sorry you've been caught in the crossfire. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed with surprising sharpness for someone who'd nearly died hours before. Then make it worth it. Finish what you started. Before Reed could respond, Dr. Cho reappeared. Mr. Reed, security needs you to identify someone in the footage. Reed nodded grimly. Stay with your mother. I'll handle this. After he left, Elizabeth squeezed Amelia's hand. That man thinks 3 moves ahead on every chessboard. Whatever happens next, remember that. 20 minutes later, Amelia found Reed in the hospital's administrative offices, surrounded by security personnel and police officers. On a large screen, grainy footage showed a man in scrubs accessing the medication storage area. That's Victor Mercer, Reed was saying, head of R&D at Pharmadine Corporation. They're Reeves' primary investor and manufacturer of 4 patented chemotherapy drugs that would be significantly impacted by early detection technologies. One officer turned to Reed. You're saying this is corporate espionage? I'm saying it's attempted murder to protect profits, Reed replied coldly, and I can prove it. Reed's phone chimed with a message. He glanced at it, then turned to Amelia. Our pancreatic module has been downloaded by 2,731 medical institutions worldwide in the last hour. Reeves has postponed his announcement indefinitely. Relief washed over her. So we've won? Not yet. Reed's expression was resolute. The full algorithm still needs to be completed and released before they can regroup, and we need to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened here today, 2 days later. Amelia found herself back where everything had begun at Maison d'Or. The restaurant had been closed for a private event, but the staff was the same. Marcus greeted her with a mixture of confusion and deference as she arrived with Reed. Everything is arranged as requested. Mr. Reed. Reed nodded. The guests? Arriving now? Amelia watched as the restaurant filled with an unusual mix of people media representatives, medical professionals, and several patients from Westlake, including her mother, who arrived in a wheelchair but insisted on standing with assistance as she entered. What exactly are we doing here? Amelia asked Reed. Changing the narrative, he replied. Reeves and his investors are already trying to spin this as an unfortunate medical incident unrelated to their work. We're making sure the truth is heard. As the room filled, Reed took position at the center table, the same one where Amelia had spilled coffee on his laptop 5 weeks earlier. She stood beside him, suddenly conscious of her transformation from waitress to collaborator. Thank you all for coming, Reed began once everyone was seated, particularly those of you who have traveled directly from hospital beds. He nodded toward Elizabeth and several other patients. What I'm about to share will change how we approach cancer detection forever. He proceeded to explain the algorithm in terms the media could understand, sizing its open source nature and the dramatic improvement in early detection rates. Then he shifted to the attempted sabotage. 2 days ago, an executive from Pharmadine Corporation deliberately contaminated medication at Westlake Medical Center. Their target was Elizabeth Bennett, mother of my research partner, Amelia Bennett, and a patient whose exceptional response to our experimental protocol threatened their profit model. Gasps echoed through the restaurant. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. Ms. Bennett could have died, Reed continued. Instead, she's here today as living proof of what our technology can accomplish and what some will do to suppress it. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Reed, are you saying a pharmaceutical company tried to commit murder to protect its profits? The evidence has been turned over to the authorities, Reed replied. But yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, and it stops today. He turned to Amelia. Ms. Bennett joined this project under unusual circumstances. 5 weeks ago, she stood exactly where she is now and accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop. The admission drew surprised murmurs. What appeared to be a catastrophic accident became the catalyst for an unprecedented collaboration. Reed raised his coffee cup. To demonstrate our confidence in this algorithm, I'm announcing that the complete version is being released worldwide at this very moment, free of charge. Open to all immune to corporate suppression. The room erupted in applause. Amelia watched as several of Westlake's patients wiped tears from their eyes, people whose lives would be directly impacted by this technology. Then, in a gesture that stunned everyone, Reed knelt beside Elizabeth's chair. Miss Bennett, your daughter's insights have saved countless lives. Your courage in the face of both cancer and corporate malice has been extraordinary. He pressed a small flash drive into her hand. This contains the original algorithm in its entirety. If anything happens to me or the public version, you'll ensure it reaches those who need it. Elizabeth accepted it with dignity. No one should profit from others' suffering. As the event concluded, Amelia found herself momentarily alone with Reed. What happens now? She asked. Our contract ends in 4 days. Reed studied her, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. I find myself reluctant to conclude our arrangement because the algorithm still needs refinement, she asked, though she knew that wasn't the answer. Because I've discovered something unexpected, replied. Something more valuable than the algorithm itself. And what's that? A partner who challenges me. Who makes the work better? He paused. Who makes me better? Before she could respond, a waiter approached with a carafe of coffee. As he poured, his hand trembled slightly, and coffee splashed onto the table, though notably, not on any electronics. I'm so sorry, sir, the young man said. Reed looked at the spilled coffee, then at Amelia, a rare smile touching his lip. No apology necessary, he said. Sometimes accidents change lives for the better.